Does anyone actually get multi-citizenship through naturalization? If so, what have you seen? I guess, how does it happen? How does it happen?
So, sorry, I lost you there for a moment. So I hope I got it correctly. So yes, Maltese Immigration Act does consider naturalization, and as long as an applicant can prove that he has had very, very strong connections to the island for an uninterrupted period of 5 years or more, it is possible to apply for naturalization. And there's a process, there's an application, and there's a process, there's a vetting, there's a note of allegiance, there is also I'm trying to find the right word, a test, I suppose, to see that the person does appreciate Maltese culture and has a good understanding of Maltese culture, Maltese history, and also basics of the Maltese language. But yes, it is possible.
Okay, language test as well. Okay. Would you say that that process, that naturalization process, is particularly rigorous? Because I'm aware of certain jurisdictions where it's pretty tough. For example, in the UK, the average British citizen probably could not pass the life in the UK test that would-be citizens need to study for and pass. So would you say that process of the exams and language is it's a tough hurdle to cross, or would you say it's doable by the average person?
Of the extent of this test, I would imagine that it is doable, but I would also imagine that it is not easy, because the whole plan, the whole objective, I suppose, is of course to ensure that people who can contribute to the country obtain citizenship by naturalization. So I'm sure that there has to be a little bit about the language and also a little bit about the history and the culture. If you are to integrate well into any country, not just Malta, it is important that you do no longer consider yourself as a stranger or are seen as a stranger, but you integrate well and you respect the culture and the nuances of that country which is actually hosting you. So although I don't want to say anything which might not be correct or precise, I do believe that the process is eminently doable, but I'm sure that it's not simple and straightforward. That anyone can just go and just sign on the dotted line and that's it.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks a lot for that. So that's a great segue into the whole investment migration space. So correct me if I'm wrong in that it's a common misunderstanding that Malta has a citizenship by investment program. It does not. It has a residency by investment or golden visa program, which can also have accelerated pathways to citizenship. Am I correct in saying that way?
No, actually Malta does have a citizenship by investment program. It's called the ESDI, and it is a citizenship by extraordinary investment. And this replaces the previous program, which was the MIIP, which was the Malta Individual Investor Program. This was revamped in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, April or thereabouts. And today the program is more robust. It has a very, very comprehensive due diligence process, which is probably one of the toughest available on the market today. The first phase, so the applicant and his dependents will receive residency status in Malta, and they should maintain that residency for at least 1 year prior to becoming citizens. Second stage is submission of the full application for citizenship, and that takes anything from 12 months to 36 months. 12 months, there's a fast track option where the costs are, of course, slightly more expensive, or else there is once either the 12-month or 36-month period has elapsed, then citizenship is granted.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So if I'm understanding, so with that extraordinary investment, the fastest track gets you from point A to point B in 12 months. Is that the fastest?
Right.
Okay.
12 months from the time that the application is submitted, and of course, provided that the application up. Yes. No, I said that the 12 months would run from the day that the full application is submitted, and on the assumption that the application is complete and correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. And is there a residency requirement? Like, does the applicant need to be in country during that period of time, or can they be elsewhere?
In the first year, where there is what is known as the residency phase, yes, there has to be, of course, it doesn't mean that you have to be here for 365 days in any given year, but there is an obligation on the applicant to spend as much time on the island as possible. Also, because this is the initial period where the applicant starts to get more accustomed, more acclimatized to Malta, to Maltese culture. Okay, so that is the general intention there. Of course, normal absences from the island are, of course, allowed. People still need to maybe travel for work, for family, for holiday. So there's no hard rules on this. But again, caution and reasonableness should always apply.
Understood. So it's a great segue into the article on particularly high-profile U.S. billionaire Peter Thiel, one of the early investors, co-founders in Facebook and Ethereum and a whole bunch of other stuff. So he apparently, according to the media, he's on a pathway to citizenship. But obviously we don't know the intricacies of that situation, but generally speaking, the program is quite popular. Everything is above board, and lots of people have been applying and being successful on that journey to citizenship. Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, we some technical difficulties. So I was pulling the article, I think it was in the New York Times, on U.S. billionaire Peter Thiel into the whole mess. And, the article tried to sensationalize it a bit, but essentially that the Citizenship By investment program, as you've just described, it's completely normal, it's completely legit, everything is above board, and lots of people all over the world have been taking advantage of it. Is that fair to say? What are your comments on it?
Yes, I think that the press seem to have tendency to over sensationalize and dramatize, especially when certain individuals are involved, and the individual in question is, of course, a very high-profile individual, especially in the US. As I said, Malta has a very, very robust it was designed to ensure that undesirables do not filter through. I think what was unfortunate in this case, and I have no doubt that this was a genuine mistake, was that the address that this applicant selected as his residential address during the application process was also advertised as a premises for Airbnb with Airbnb. I would have no doubt in my mind that this was an oversight, but that is also what caused a lot of the sensation. Malta is very keen to promote citizenship, but again, citizenship with substance. So the idea is that these people, and usually it is people who have been successful in life, in their business life, in their careers, take up citizenship in Malta, because it is also seen as a way where they can contribute to the Maltese economy, contribute to Maltese philanthropy. There's also, the notion of a transfer of skills, potentially, as well as the potential to open up extensive businesses, especially Maltese startups. Malta is repositioning itself as a hub for startups in general, but particularly technical tech startups. So, of course, having high-profile people with sound and extensive business connections can help a Maltese entrepreneur or any entrepreneur who is domiciling his startup business from Malta, can help propel them to the next level quicker and faster.
Okay, great. And unfortunately, it's not just the media, but we've seen that the European Union, like Brussels, seems to have some level of discomfort with citizenship by investment. We saw it with Cyprus, and we saw it in some of the commentary about certain Caribbean islands. And now there appears to be some sort of situation with Malta. I know it's sensitive, but do you want to comment generally on it?
Yes, I mean, the only comment that I can make, and it's not a partisan comment, is the comment that resonates with what the Maltese government said. The Maltese government is very, very serene about the robustness of the program, and therefore they are very confident that they will address this challenge by the courts at EU level. So I suppose it's just a watching brief, and we just have to see how.
Another point that I wanted to touch on and get your comments. I think before we went live, we were talking about Malta positioning itself as a great jurisdiction for family offices. Do you want to say a few words? Do you want to comment on that?
Sure. I think my personal opinion is that Malta is a very good jurisdiction for family office type structures. Why? Because we have an extensive tax treaty network. We have a very simple and sound tax system, which has been peer reviewed by the European Union. We also, as a jurisdiction, work very well with other jurisdictions like the UK, like Germany, like Switzerland. So it's very easy to have a family office, but then outsourcing portfolio management, for example, to a Swiss portfolio company or a wealth management company. So I think there's a tremendous pool of highly qualified persons within the financial services sector. It's a sector that Malta has been developing since its first foray in 1988 with the MIBA Act. So there's a good body of knowledge there and a good basis on which to build. So I think that is where we will start to see more activity from service providers such as our own, who will start to develop that market more extensively.
Right, but I want to comment on the talent pool, because I guess that's a criticism that's been levied on other smaller jurisdictions that are pursuing that family office. There's substance is the name of the game right now, so you need to have boots on the ground. And if the talent pool is shallow and it's difficult to attract talent in, and there's size restrictions because the
Yes.
island is only so big, does that place a natural limit as to how far the sector can really go?
I think I got the basic thrust of what your question is. So Malta has, as I said before, has been developing a financial services sector for several years now. So the local technical institutions, universities have reacted to that, and so we have a very high level of education. Maltese high standard of education. So the talent pool has been augmented over the years by people coming here to set up structures in Malta, particularly when it comes to, for example, the gaming sector, or up to a few years ago, the investment fund sector. So many of these people have moved on, some have stayed here, but the talent pool is pretty strong.
Okay, great. So